Welcome to the Lifestyle Overland story. In this chapter of travels, we're on an epic father-daughter trip from Utah to Alaska, where we've made our way to the remote and jaw-droppingly beautiful Kodiak Island. This morning, we're waking up to a herd of cows meandering through what has to be one of the most incredible campsites in the world, with sweeping views of the North Pacific. We were fortunate to have had a peaceful night of sleep in our Bush Company tent in spite of our windy, exposed camp. But there was trouble on the horizon. The forecast was starting to take a nasty turn, and so with rain moving in quickly, we scrambled to pack down camp just before the drops began to fall. You might not know this, but Alaska played an important role during World War II, though its story was overshadowed by the more publicized theater of war in Europe and the South Pacific, where the more intense battles raged. But here, on these emerald green cliffsides, lies the remnants of concrete defensive emplacements that once kept a watchful eye on the North Pacific. While this peaceful, remote island may seem like it's a long way from any war zone, it was in fact a gatekeeper to the United States' western flank, since this waterway was the most direct route for Japanese enemy forces to attack and potentially invade our western shores in the lower 48. After the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, which prompted the United States to enter the war, the Japanese forces again attacked the homeland 7 months later on June 3rd and 4th with carrier-deployed air raids on the U.S. military installations at Dutch Harbor, which was followed by an occupation of Attu and Kiska Islands of the Aleutian chain. This seemingly insignificant attack and invasion of remote islands was the first time since 1812 that an enemy held U.S. soil. It was actually a great threat since it allowed a strategic staging ground for more intense attacks on the Alaskan interior and potentially the lower 48 if they weren't pushed back. Knowing this vulnerability of the western states through this route, the military was already busy fortifying the coastline with emplacements housing spotlights, spotting towers, and gun batteries armed with surplus 6 and 8-inch World War I battleship cannons. Fast, reliable communications were of paramount importance between these forts, so an advanced system was installed to ensure secure messaging of inbound threats between the forward locations all the way back to the mainland. This Kodiak Military Museum, run by volunteers, was a surprising experience for us all, from the knowledgeable staff to the hands-on experience using these complicated teletype machines. The girls were mesmerized by the seemingly magical devices and got to experience their very first time using a rotary phone.
And 9. And this phone's gonna ring.
Take it out, take it out. Take it out, Caroline, take it out. Hello? Hello? Hi. Hi. Don't yell. Is what your name now?
There's phones all over the place.
To the left! To the right! Slide and C. And if you made a mistake, you have to signal E 8 times.
Alright, can you write?
But on here you can easily see that the shortest route from Japan to the west coast of the United States comes right through the Aleutians and past Kodiak.
While the guns of Kodiak sat silent in vigilant readiness, the enemy never appeared on the horizon. The strategic location and threat of these defenses did their job to ward off a Western attack on the United States. And eventually, 15,000 American troops conquered the remaining 2,500 Japanese on Attu after a fierce 3-week-long battle that few know about to this day. While the Japanese incursion was mostly a decoy to divert forces from the main battlefront, it was still of paramount importance for the United States to hold the line along this remote coast and ensure that the mainland stayed protected. It's an eerie feeling to look out on these waters and wonder what it must have been like for the soldiers here to stand on alert, waiting and watching for an attack so far from home.
Received the call to hurry to the hospital, but after his arrival, our hours went by.
After the end of the war, the United States Coast Guard took over most of the naval and Army defenses left behind, including Fort Greely, to eventually become one of the largest Coast Guard bases in the United States, providing maritime law enforcement and search and rescue to the Gulf of Alaska and the Bering Sea. So what was your thoughts on using the old rotary phone for the first time ever?
It was really cool. Like, it was weird because we're all so used to, like, iPhones, like, Samsungs, that we just, like, it's just different, you know?
Yeah.
And we thought war was hard. That thing's impossible to work. It's so funny because I called Claire and, hey, Claire, you want to get matching perms? Of course!
Very cool. That's an awesome museum. With heavy rains and high winds moving in, we decided to find the best sheltered camp possible before things got too wild. After a few hours of exploring side roads and coastline, we found the perfect spot, but it required a bit of a water crossing to access. Let's just hope the water doesn't rise too much with what was coming. I believe this will do, especially for the weather that we got coming in right now. So
yeah, I mean it's boiling out there. You can see it, but
yeah,
I think this is a nice little shelter motion here. We're looking good.
Well, I mean, there's a little breeze here, but you step literally to like right here, and there's almost no wind. Come on, man, stop going Weather Channel on me. It was pure pandemonium. Throwing shopping carts and umbrellas, and birds go flying by.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, this is storybook level.
Goodness keeps on giving.
With some quick and easy food in our bellies, we all retreated to our tents to ride out the heavy rain while playing games and watching movies. We were just hoping that the worst would blow through overnight and give us some better weather for exploring tomorrow. Well, good morning, folks. It is a blustery rainy, cold day out there. So we're in no hurry to get up and pack down, because I mean, it's up until just a few minutes ago, it's been downpouring. So another lazy day, just enjoying the views out of the side of the tent here, which are phenomenal. And then I think we're going to go try and hit a few roads. We got flood warnings in effect right now with 3 to 6 inches of rain predicted. So we got to be mindful of where we go, that we don't get stuck somewhere. But we might go into town later on. We'll see how it goes.
I hope so.
All right, Rain, hit the pause button so we can pack down.
Go ahead.
Water. What's this?
Go.
Listen
Go.
on it. Go!
The next morning, we awoke to more gray Kodiak skies and a steady soaking rain. And so, in hopes of keeping the experience enjoyable for the girls, and for ourselves if we're being honest, we headed back to town for some warm, dry breakfast options. But not before finding our water crossing had gotten a little bit deeper overnight.
So just to be clear, if you rent this vehicle or any of Craig's, what we just did is not allowed. This is done at a closed course by professionals who own the vehicles. Don't attempt that. I got deeper than I was expecting, especially right there towards the end. I could see where the water was moving fast, and I think it had pushed some of the silt out that we had floated across. That was close. That was close.
We returned to what had quickly become a favorite stop for breakfast to assess the weather situation and decide our best plan for the day over a couple of ham and cheese croissants and some kind of spectacular pecan dish.
Oh, all right. Well, we had hoped that the rain would start to clear up today, but it's looking like the forecast is getting progressively worse. So we're going to do our best to get out here and drive what few remaining trails and roads that there are on our list. But unfortunately, some of those may be impassable at this point or just unsafe. So we'll see what kind of situation we get into. Really, fingers crossed at this point that we can see a Kodiak Bear. That's the quintessential grand slam for coming here to Kodiak, is seeing all the marine life and a Kodiak Bear. We had a flight scheduled to go and do the bear tour, but they called us and said that that's not looking good. So that might not happen. So we're gonna do our best. We're gonna enjoy what we got. You just gotta roll with the punches. I mean, nobody can control the weather, especially here in Alaska. You just got to come prepared and be flexible. Another thing that you'll want to always bring is quality rain gear. And I don't mean just a rain coat. Rain pants, boots, maybe even waterproof gloves, because it can turn into a world of rain, and that's what we're dealing with right now. And it's kind of miserable if you don't have some kind of gear to keep you 100% dry. You just got to embrace it. There's no such thing as inclement weather, just inferior gear. So come prepared.
Oh my gosh. It's so deep. Don't do this at home.
turned my back on her for 5 seconds.
Oh gosh.
How are you gonna get down?
It's a Clare Bear. Pretty impressive.
Were you recording that?
I was.
Don't put it in video.
Uh-huh. With flood warnings going into effect as the rain began to come down even harder, we did our best to tiptoe around the worst of the flooded streams to see what we could of Kodiak through the downpours. We attempted to drive some of the few trails on the island, but one option after another was simply too far underwater to risk driving. And so, we decided to drive to the opposite end of the road system to see more of the fortifications. With the rain becoming a bit lighter, we were liking where this day was headed. But all of a sudden, the road ahead simply disappeared. Apparently, some sort of massive flood had totally wiped out the road at some point in time and left a stream crossing as the only viable access to the rest of the road.
Yeah.
Well, this is different.
I mean, we can get down there. How your boots?
Yeah, right. This is a steep climb. We did our best to scout the stream on foot, but the murky, cold water was just moving too fast to get a good feel for what was on bottom. After some deliberation, I decided to carefully ease the nose of Aspen into this rushing stream to see how deep it really was. About halfway across, I felt a sandy ledge give way underneath us, and the front wheels started to sink into something soft. So before getting into a desperate situation, I just threw it into reverse. This crossing was simply too risky to push forward, not knowing how deep it was or what large rocks might be waiting for us below the surface. Well,
But I wanna. But we shouldn't.
So we were just saying that if it was just us guys, we'd give it a go.
And it wasn't a rental.
Yeah, if it wasn't a rental, like there are people waiting to rent this thing, and we're just not going to put it through that.
Yeah.
Number two, just kids and all that. And the water has been up at least another 10 inches from what I'm seeing during this rain event, so it could easily come right back.
Yeah, and it's been raining solidly all day with the forecast through tonight too as well. So.
And I don't know if you could see it in the shot, but that swift moving part, I was down to the emblem on the grill, and it was soft underneath. And I'd love to punch it.
Yeah.
And I know if I punched it, we could do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what rocks are in this murky water that's going to hang me up. We got a ferry we got to catch tomorrow, so there's just not time for...
And there's more places to explore.
There's just not time for mistakes. So.
Yeah.
Oh, Kodiak, you're teasing us.
So much.
Man, I want to do it. While the heavy rains had put a damper on the trail rides, we couldn't complain too much. It was just simply too beautiful here in spite of the weather, and the constant presence of the ocean and marine life kept us entertained as we poked around for more accessible roads.
wasn't long before we found a short trail that led to more World War II defensive emplacements. This particular location was a light station, where an incredibly bright spotlight powered by a generator could scan the water at night, while spotters further down the coast could use optics to verify whether the vessels were friendly or not. As I tried to put myself in their shoes, it gave me chills to think about how ominous this job would have been for the soldiers stationed here, thousands of miles away from the raging battlefront. Watching these waters night after night and day after day had to be a psychological battle of its own, knowing that the peaceful moments could be shattered at any given time if the enemy decided to move on the western states, and one's quick action or inaction could mean the difference for hundreds of thousands of lives on the mainland. With more rain moving in and our traveling companions getting a bit damp and maybe a little ragged around the edges, Greg and I decided to call an audible and surprise them with a dry place for the night. Well, you got your wish.
I did.
We're getting out of the rain. We're getting showers. Got a little Airbnb. Go dry out, freshen up, and then get back after it again. Our wet and wild adventure had taken a toll on our limited laundry supply, so this was a welcome stop after several days of travel. It also put us closer to town for a very special Kodiak Bear experience that we'd signed up for. That is, as long as the weather broke in time. So before this trip started, Brooke took them to go shopping, and they came back with a Ford Bronco t-shirt, matching t-shirt outfit.
I love it.
Well, Brooke, I love you to death, but we had to remedy that, and thankfully here on Kodiak, we actually found something more fitting.
I still like the shirt though.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's all right. You can use it as an oil rag or anything like that. I'm just kidding. We like all vehicles. We just don't normally buy the shirts.
We're twins. We're twins. Yes, sir. I am me. She is she, except when I pretend I'm her. And when we switch, you can't tell which is which because we're identical. Identical twins.
Breakfast time. Good morning. The next morning, being good dads, we hit the easy button on breakfast with some Mickey D biscuits before heading out to see more of the little town while we waited for word from the Bear Tour folks to see if our flight was even going to happen.
This might be the most expensive fill-up outside of Dead Horse.
Yeah, or Coldfoot.
Or Coldfoot. Coldfoot was pretty spendy, wasn't it?
It was pretty
Yeah.
spendy.
Yeah, you're running premium, right?
Yeah, she's a snob.
Our first stop was the Kodiak History Museum, where we got a glimpse into the early days of the island with incredible artifacts from the native Alutiiq people's heritage, ranging from hunting barbs to beautiful ivory carvings and even colorful beadwork. There were also many artifacts from the Russian colonial era when Russia conquered and colonized many areas of Alaska, bringing with them the Russian Orthodoxy whose roots are still prominent across Alaska to this day. The museum itself is housed in one of the oldest known buildings in Alaska, where the Russian-American company stored the pelts of its lucrative fur trade.
That's not ceiling, it's too dark.
It's an otter.
Otters are that big?
Mm-hmm. It's a sea otter. The girls love the hands-on learning experience here, especially the room dedicated to the fishing industry, which is the perfect segue into our next stop, the Kodiak Harbor. For thousands of years, the inhabitants of Kodiak have relied upon the abundant sea life for their sustenance, and to this day, it's still the core of their economy, with this port being one of the top 5 producing fisheries in the United States. Pollock, cod, salmon, halibut, and sablefish, along with tanner and Dungeness crabs, are just some examples of the diverse catches that make up the heartbeat of Kodiak's economy, with a staggering hundreds of millions of pounds of some of the finest seafood being sold all over the world. For years, I've been a big fan of the Discovery Channel's Deadliest Catch, so coming here and seeing several of those boats in person was icing on the cake for this trip. Sometimes I wish we had more than one lifetime to live on this earth, because in an alternate timeline, I would love to know what life is like in this industry, riding the swells of the North Pacific and fishing its infamous waters for wild catches that fill the boat with slippery, smelly gold of the sea. As we wrapped up our tour on the docks, we received a disappointing phone call. The exciting Kodiak Bear flight tour we had scheduled was canceled due to the ongoing flooding from the near record rainfall. While we were all bummed at this news, we still had some trails to try before our ferry arrived to take us back to the mainland. So the next morning, we got an early start to see if the floods had receded overnight as the rain eased up. All right, we're back. Rain died down last night, still a bit of a mist today. Significant drop in water levels. I think some of this is actually going to be passable, so let's go see what we can find. Whoa. Well, maybe not.
Yeah. Tiptoe, maybe.
Oh, that's steep, Dad. That's steep.
Dang it. Yes, I know. Squeaky belt. So this guy, he was coming out here to try the same thing. He's been out here for about 3 years, I think he said, with the Coast Guard, and this was the highest they've ever seen the water. So confirmation, not a good day to give that a try, but man, that's just the risk that you run. All right, let's go try something else. With the first trail on our list still flooded, we headed back to another crossing to see if the levels had improved. Today, things were much lower and clearer, so we could see what looked like a viable route through the deep spots and hidden rocks. Still, this was our last day on the island, and the inbound ferry wasn't going to wait on us if we got stuck. So, after some deliberation, we opted to do the responsible thing. Just kidding. We decided to send it.
Yeah, here on the last day, finally getting across. Oh, I didn't think we were going to get to see this piece of it.
Yeah, agreed.
While we've definitely seen worse crossings before, we were glad we didn't push it on the day before, because there was a nasty hole with large rocks where I would have ended up. Now, with the clock ticking, we had about an hour of exploring before we needed to put the pedal down for the ferry ride. So, we pulled up some of the World War II fortifications on satellite imagery, thanks to our onboard Starlink internet, and began making our way to the coast along narrow, seldom used trails. It wasn't long before we stumbled upon the best emplacement yet.
So awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
This bunker held a little surprise for us because it had not one, but two levels. And after slipping down an overgrown footpath, we headed into the darkness. This place would be the perfect set for a horror film. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a few goosebumps as we explored it by cell phone light. Deer bone down in there.
You know that one game on Roblox, Claire? I know you've played it, but like, it's like this long hallway. There's all this like graffiti doors.
I like the way they just blew it up, you know?
Yeah.
The place.
Well, you know there's got to be pieces scattered all over. Man, that's a chunk. All right, folks, we got to put the pedal down. We're pushing it for the ferry now. Oh, I'm glad we made it across that stream, though. This was worth it.
Scary.
Wow. This is where a horror film should be filmed. Just saying.
Well, it's a little bit of history that's just left alone.
I know, right?
As we drove back across the island to catch the ferry, we were so glad that we at least got to see the last of the fortifications on our bucket list, but we were a little wistful that the only bears we had spotted so far were in Walmart. But Kodiak had one last parting gift for us as we neared the harbor. A young, very hungry Kodiak Bear had awoken from his hibernation and was scouring the river bottom for salmon who would soon return to fill his belly. With our Kodiak experience having left a lasting impression on us that we won't soon forget, we joined the line of cars to await our turn to load for the long overnight ride back to Homer. Caroline and I have been on the road for almost 3 weeks now. While the video calls with my wife Sarah and baby Abigail helped us stay in touch during our travels, we were ready to be together again on some family adventures. And so, we wish Kodiak farewell, but promise to return again in hopes of finishing those flooded trails and spending some time with even more Kodiak Bears.
Homer in approximately 1/2 hour.
Well, that, my friend, was the best chicken sandwich I've ever had.
Agreed. And in a random place.
What's it called?
Boad Cafe.
And, true to its name, it's actually in the boatyard. Amazing. Carne asada fries were amazing. Carne asada tacos, off the charts. Chicken sandwich, sorry Sarah, but that was the best one ever. There it is. Look them up if you're ever in Homer. Now, time to get back to Craig's house, detail these rigs up, and get ready to fly back to start another project. Woohoo! Woo, baby girl.
That was interesting.
4,245 miles. Father-daughter trip. After making it back to Anchorage, Craig and I joined the guys with the Alaska Project for a podcast to chat about our Alaskan experiences. If you're interested, you can find that conversation in the link below. Then it was time to clean up Aspen and get her ready for her first rental. I was nothing short of impressed with this build during our travels north, and I can't wait for other folks to come and see this beautiful land in her fully kitted form. If you're interested in an Alaskan overland experience, then head to explore.rent, where you can reserve your next adventure without the long drive from the lower 48. Even more options are available at alaskaoverlander.com, where if you use code LIFESTYLE, you can get $100 off your rental. After a heavy session of gear Tetris, Caroline and I were whisked off to the airport to make our mercifully short flights back to Utah. In case you haven't noticed, these girls have become the best of friends over the years, and so parting ways has become harder and harder with each visit. But hopefully, we'll be back real soon for another trip across the last frontier.
They say gardens are for growing so much more than roses, but you like the way they look. They say dancing is for parties, but you'd rather do it always. So I twirl you around the kitchen while we cook. I wanna do anything you want to. I wanna do anything you want to.
Thanks again for riding along with us on this father-daughter trip to Kodiak Island. We hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already and follow along on the next adventure. And to our patrons, thank you so much for your support on Patreon. None of this would be possible without your generosity and belief in what we do. Until next time, stay curious and remember to leave it better than you found it.
I wanna do anything you want to. If you wanna go, we can. Stay here and just hold hands. I'm all in, yes I am, no doubt about it.
Well, baby girl, we made it.
We did.
What a trip.
Barely.
You ready to get home and see your puppy?
Yes!
Had a good time with you.
I did too.
It's a good father-daughter trip.
It was.
I wanna do anything you want to. I wanna do anything